thank you everybody for being a part of this Zoom chat. And obviously these are a different kind of different for all of us. And that's just not even giving it any kind of the respect that it's due, as far as where we are as a country, where we are as individuals, our team, organization. Everything's been thrown into a bit of a in flux, but through a lot of determination and people being patient and doing everything that we can to get back to some sort of new life and hopefully a better life. I think I'm thankful for the progress that we can see in front of us that we need to make. And, that was, in a nutshell, one of the reasons why I decided to get outside of my box and pen something like the letter that Dean helped me with the other day. But it was just a lot of my thoughts, a lot of about where we were as a society, and a lot of me as a father wanting to express to my kids that I don't have many answers for them. So it's a weird time for us, and I'm thankful that you guys are taking time out of your schedule to be a part of this chat. And I appreciate you guys, and if you guys want to fire away with questions, I'll try my best to answer as best I can.
Yeah. Yeah, Monty, Richard Science here, Fox 10. I just wanted to ask, in times like this, whether it's a pandemic or sports takes a back seat, because obviously it's just a game. But how can sports help when it comes to the forefront in times like this, when people like yourself who have a platform can use that platform to inspire and encourage change?
Well, sports, in my opinion, is a it's a connector in so many ways. When you're a kid, all you cared about was playing, being with your friends, wanting to win, and being able to go home and tell your parents about what happened. Tell your auntie, tell your grandparents about what happened. There were no barriers. Race wasn't involved. For the most part, social class was not involved in it. It was just the pure element of playing. And I don't think that's left the arena of sport, even though we're dealing on, in the highest level of sports, NBA, NFL, baseball, soccer, MLS. I think we all have that childlike want to compete, be around our friends, tell everybody about the game, and our society gravitates towards that. We love to see our teams play, and I'm hopeful that if we do get a chance to play, we become a bright spot for our world. Our world, it's not just our country, but the world in general is looking for something to grab a hold of that's authentic, that comes from a good place. But at the same time, I'm hopeful that sport doesn't deflect from the things that we need to pay attention to. And as much as we want to get back to playing basketball, football, baseball, there's still a number of issues in our social structure that need attention. And that's why we have the situations we have around our country.
Monty, you mentioned in your piece that you were calling on other people in the league to help you, find solutions and know how to approach this. I'm just curious if in the past couple of days, if someone has told you something that has provided guidance or comfort or just anything that has helped you over the last few days.
My phone just went, the young boys say viral. You know what I mean? My phone was just going nuts, mostly because it's not something I've done before. And to your point, I've had different people just want to talk, about real stuff, what's going on. And it's been pretty cool to have so many of my white friends who ask, like, what can I do? And I'm not qualified to respond to that in an appropriate way. But the one encouraging thing I hope that I did was I told every one of them to continue to be themselves. That's why they're my friends, because they're really good people. None of us are perfect, but I don't think any African American who's been through some sort of discrimination, dealt with inequality, is asking for, people to change in that way. I think most of us all on this call just want to see everybody on the same playing field. That's it. And, to all of my friends who are not of color, I'm like, dude, girl, I love you. Dude, you're my friend. And we have to learn how to accept our differences. I wouldn't be who I am if not for my friends here in America that are white, or my friends in Serbia, or my friends in South America, people that I've met throughout my time in the NBA and college that aren't like me, don't look like me. And so that's been really encouraging for me to get the phone calls of, from people that have said, man, thank you. But then the humility to ask, like, what can I do? And, unfortunately, I don't have like a solution that is going to solve the problems in our society. I will say, if you have the ability, no matter what color you are, to affect change in our political system, to write letters, to create the relationships with our leaders that can bring about change, that's going to help. We have a committee in the NBA Coaches Association, and 3 or 4 of the guys on it are white, because they understand it's going to take, at least the way I'm understanding it, white people who are in the position of high responsibility to make these kinds of changes in our system, so that we all can be on the same playing field and live under the pillars that our country was founded on.
Hey, Coach, I appreciate you taking this, doing this Zoom call. One of the things, obviously, not only are you representing yourself, your family, your race, and America as a whole, but you're representing the Phoenix Suns. So how important was this for you to be like, okay, look, let me be a voice for our franchise in addressing this? Because in ways, people that have talked to me since then have looked at you that way and said, hey, he was speaking for the team. Do you feel that connection at all?
I think I did afterwards. When I first thought about penning this particular note, it was really about me and my kids sitting there watching the protest on TV, and ever so often they would show George Floyd and others who have, died because of brutality in our, policing systems. That was just about my kids and talking to them. And Dave, to be straight, I felt a bit helpless, but I also felt like I was a bit privileged, because I'm the coach and because I make the amount of money that I make and I can go back to my house in this gated community. I felt a bit incubated and isolated and almost felt like I was hiding a bit by being quiet. And I'm not saying everybody in my situation should feel that way, but that's how I felt. And so after dealing with that and talking to Dean and coming up with a letter that we felt would be an encouragement, but also talk about some issues, when the team decided to, basically partner with me and basically came up with two statements that I was so proud to be a part of because they mirrored each other in a way. And that's when I felt it. I felt like I was in a position to represent the team on this platform. And, I don't particularly see myself in that way of having a platform, but I think you have to do the best you can with what you have and not worry about the size or, the scope of who you're going to reach. You just do it. And you just pray to God that it can bring healing and encouragement to people.
Monty, Craig Fouey, ABC 15. We go to Suns games. We go to Cardinals games. The stadiums, the arenas are packed with whites, blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans, different socioeconomic backgrounds, conservatives, liberals, Republicans, Democrats, you name it. We're all there cheering for the team. We wear your jerseys. We want autographs. We want pictures. What happens when we step outside the arena? What changes?
That's a tough question. I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard one. All I know is how I was raised. I was raised in a bit of a situation where I had to go live with my grandparents in Colonial, Virginia, Fredericksburg, Virginia. And I watched my grandfather, who would work about 10 hours a day and then come home and get his lawnmowers and go back across town and cut grass. And he would cut grass for older Caucasian people. And I would watch him in a way that I'd never seen him before. He was submissive when he talked to them. And I didn't get it because I was so young. I was just cutting grass and pulling weeds. And as I got older, I realized what was going on. He was being submissive because that was the climate that he had, become accustomed to, and that was the way it was. But my grandfather never one time said one negative thing about the way that he was treated or viewed. It had a huge impact on me to not allow that kind of environment or that kind of situation make me react in a way that I would, treat people differently because of their social structure, finances, or color. So I can't speak for other people and why people change once they leave the arena. All I can do is tell you how I was raised and also tell you that I've not reacted properly in the face of, somebody calling me the wrong thing when I was a teenager in Virginia. But I learned over time that there's strength in our differences, and you hope that, as we come out of this and we, learn more about each other and learn how to accept each other, that we leave the games. And the other thing I'll say is we can't assume that everybody leaves the game and leaves with an attitude that's, prejudiced or racist. I don't believe that's the case either. I think we see these acts by certain people and we tend to paint everybody with that brush. I think for the most part, our society is filled with unbelievably good people, and you see it all over the country where Black, white, and brown people are standing together for what's right and there for each other. So it'd be pretty, that would be an assumption to say that everybody leaves the game and they, have an attitude that's, we're going to be separate, and because of our skin color or other differences, we're different, and I can't be around you or I don't like you. You're muted. Somebody talk. There you go.
Nick King, there you go, Nick.
Okay, got it. Hi, Monty. Nick King, 3TBC.
Hey.
You mentioned feeling helpless when you were trying to talk to your kids. Is there anything you can share that you did find to tell them?
I mean, the helpless feeling is because you don't have. I don't have an answer that is going to solve what they're watching on TV. I don't have an answer for why a man like George Floyd had to die like that. My kids are sitting there watching it, and to see their faces, they didn't have to say anything. You can just look at their expressions. That's when, if you have kids, you just feel like, man, this is something that I never thought I'd have to explain to my kids, but they've seen it time and time again. And they're, I have kids from 22 all the way down to 9. But those situations allow for us to have the kinds of conversations that are necessary. And it allows me to talk to them about, people like Dr. Martin Luther King and different people in my life, like Greg Popovich, R.C. Buford, Hugh Weber, white men who gave me an opportunity. And it allows my kids to, like I said, not paint everybody with the hate brush. They know that these are isolated situations, and even though they bring a lot of pain and a lot of confusion when you're that age, we've tried to use it as an opportunity to, talk and listen. And you don't listen much because they just don't know what to say. They're just looking. And so the conversations have been a lot different lately, because there's just, the onslaught is just unbelievable on TV. But I look at it as an opportunity to, help my kids navigate these waters when they're confronted with this kind of stuff as they get older.
Monty, what have the conversations been like with your players the past couple of days, and sharing some of the emotions that you discussed in the letter?
I mean, I've had a few text messages from the guys that, I'm not going to say which guys, but it's been pretty cool to get text messages from your players. Guys are like, Coach, I love you, man. Thank you for your letter, or, thanks for the call we had the other day. And our call was myself, James, and Mr. Sarver basically wanting them to know that we validate, support, and are here for them, but especially their feelings, because who am I to legislate that? Obviously, they're frustrated, and I'm sure it's like a lot of things they're frustrated by. I mean, we haven't been able to play basketball. People are suffering from this virus, normal life stuff, and then you add on top of that what just happened. That's a lot of stuff to deal with. And so we basically wanted to let them know we're here for them. At the same time, I wanted them to know I'm putting a letter out, and I just did. It is in no way an attempt to force you to do something or feel like you have to do something. I think so many athletes, especially the young ones, when they start making a lot of money, they get forced to make heavy decisions that they may not be ready for. And I dealt with that when I first came into the league. And so we wanted them to know this was a safe place to talk, but we also understood that there's a lot going on in their minds and their hearts, and we support them.
Coach, thanks for doing this. Thanks for writing the letter. Yo, it's good to see everybody, except for Paul. You're Paul. Coach, I was curious, how do you feel now that you've done it? And I'm also curious what's next. And was this just you personally, or was this you and the team both?
No, it started the team, because they're progressive and they understand we have responsibilities as leaders in the community. They were going to come up with a statement anyway. And I was just over at Texas watching what was going on. And Dean Stoyer and I just kind of went back and forth. I was just sharing with him some of my emotions about what was going on and the helplessness and you know, some of the things I was feeling. And Dean was like, "Ma, just, you know, keep sending me stuff and let's put something together and we'll talk about it." And so that's how it came about for me. And we just kept putting thoughts on paper and, you know, looking at it. And then, you know, I just decided I wanted to say something. Didn't think it would turn into anything. I just was wanting to put my thoughts on paper. And, you know, Dean and I talked that night. I think it was Friday night. And then I ended up talking to my pastor and his wife in New Orleans, Pastor Bill. And I was telling him what I was thinking and what I wanted to do, or at least was thinking about doing. And he gave me even more confidence. And so I just, you know, after all of that and praying about it, I just felt like I was going to use the small platform that I had to speak out about what I felt, the empathy that I had for the Floyd family and Jack. And it was pretty emotional couple days, because it was a lot of stuff going on in our country and in our hearts.
Monty, thanks for doing this. Some athletes have spoken up, some haven't, some team officials have and haven't. Can you say specifically what you advised your guys about that? There seems to be a notion among some that if you're a notable person in athletics, you have an obligation to speak up. Some push back against that. Do you have any advice for your guys when it comes to that?
Yeah, I think they have to do what they're comfortable with. But I do feel like if you feel that you can lend a hand and affect one person, then you may have to step outside of your comfort zone. Like that was that was how it was for me. You know, I just we felt like if I could affect one family, one person to, you know, go into the future and be better as it relates to race relations and where we are in our country, it was worth it. And so we just, again, we wanted to validate and support whatever they wanted to do. And I said this a second ago, so many times in our business, when you're young, you know, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, and you start making the kind of money that our guys make, all of a sudden you become wise and you become a decision maker. And I don't think that's fair to the players. I think it's something that they'll grow into as they get older. And I think for me, I have to understand that they didn't grow up like I did. You know, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s when, you know, race relations was a bit different. And then moving from Virginia to PG County, Maryland, where it was like, it went from race relations to the crack epidemic. So my upbringing is a bit different than theirs. So I don't put any pressure on guys to do that stuff. I think you have to do what you feel comfortable with. But at some point, I think as you get older, you probably have to move outside your comfort zone.
Coach, thank you for taking the time. Do you think because of the pandemic, because there's no games, a lot of people out of work, there was more of a heightened awareness to what happened? So we do see more protests. We do see more people on the street. Do you think that had something to do with it, along with the amount of athletes like a Steven Jackson or Karl Anthony Towns having the time to actually attend the protests and attend the rallies?
I don't know for sure, but I'm sure, you know, we express to our players, like just from an NBA standpoint, the emotions of losing David Stern, Kobe Bryant, the coronavirus, and then you have this situation happen. I'm sure that's affected all of us in a way that we, you know, it's hard to put into words, you know, emotionally how we all feel. So I'm sure just the combination of all these things that have happened, and then you couple that with just your own personal stuff as a human being. Like, we're all frail, fragile, and broken people, and then we have the economies out of whack, and many of our relatives and people close to us are struggling financially, and that's a lot of stuff. And when you're in the position that our players are in, you typically are the one that most people come running to for help, and that's a lot of pressure to deal with. So I think you're spot on. There's just a lot of stuff going on, and you know, I'm sure because we're off and we have the time, we're probably more focused on it than we would have been. But that's a good thing. You know, I hope we stay focused on this so that we can come up with some solutions so that we don't have to continue to watch what happened in Georgia and what happened in Minneapolis. Like, we just, I'm tired of seeing that. I'm tired of watching somebody else lose a loved one, and I know what it's like to get that phone call. Like, I'm tired of it, you know, and I don't mind being forceful when I say that. I am tired of seeing that kind of stuff on TV, and I'm tired of hearing about it.
Hi, Coach. This is Dave King. I'm going to ask probably a question you may not have a good answer. You probably don't have a good answer to.
I haven't had one since you guys got on, so it'll be par for the course.
As a white man, I'm really struggling with how to have a voice in this situation. I don't know. Representing, I have a lot of us on this call, have a lot of people who follow us and value our opinions, but mostly on sports, not on, you know, other injustices. What kind of role can someone like me or others like me have in this situation right now? What kind of role is it inherent that we really should have? Because the quiet role is not going to do anything for anyone. You have any ideas?
Yeah, I mean, I'm certainly not qualified to give you a great answer. I do know that we all have to be diligent and understand who we vote for. That's something that we just cannot take for granted anymore. You know what I mean? Like, years ago, if the candidates didn't line up with my ideas perfectly, I just didn't vote. And I feel horrible about that. I think for me, I got to dig in and understand, like, they may not line up with what I want, but the candidates may have a platform that's going to help society overall, and that's where we're going to be better. As far as, you know, what can you do? I think we do it. I was telling the players this the other day, like, don't feel like you haven't done anything. Like, what we do in the community, it does stuff. Like, what we do in sports, it does stuff to bring people together. Like, we got to continue that. For us to be able to get on this call, this is a huge blessing. Like, I know that someday one of you guys, if you haven't already, is going to write something that I don't like. But that's all right. I respect you as men and women who have a job to do. And I think that's where, even though we may have some differences, we have to respect one another. We have to show, you know, genuine love towards each other, you know, no matter what is going on in the sports world. And so hopefully we can all have an effect by voting, but just like general sensibilities, you know what I'm saying? Like that, I think that has an effect on our society for sure. And, you know, if you can, write letters to politicians in the state and local levels, because that's where it's going to start. It won't be the federal stuff, like especially as it relates to the police. Like we have to take the time to write letters, meet with our local police forces and chiefs, and talk about the issues that we know matter. And we can't be silent. If you see something that isn't right, I think it's our job to stand up and say, man, that's not cool. Knock it off. Whether it's a joke or whether it's just the stuff that we have accepted for years and decades, like that has to stop. Being silent when we see things are wrong, to me, is just as bad. So that's not a great answer, but I think your heart for the matter, to me, is unbelievably in a good place and a great start for us to provoke change and make it a better place for our kids. Like that's the goal, right? Like that's what we do. We want to make this a better place for our children.
Hi, Sierra Santos, Fox 10. You've been one of the people who has opened up the dialogue, and we as a country are going to have some really uncomfortable conversations. So how did the Suns as an organization move beyond the conversation and start affecting change in the community? You kind of just gave some examples just now.
I think we're going to have to take time to meet with our police departments and chiefs. We're going to have to, if we can, spend time with our city and state officials to, whether it's town hall meetings or coming to our practice site or us taking time out of our schedules to go meet with them and talk about the issues that have affected us or things that we see. I said it before, I felt a bit isolated and incubated in my gated community in my house because it doesn't affect me at my doorstep. That's wrong. I know things that are going on. I've seen it on TV, or I'm driving down the street and I see things. I need to have those discussions with the people that can affect those kinds of change or changes. So that's not a great answer, but I know it's going to be something that's outside of our wheelhouse, so to speak, because my personality is just coach and go home. that's me, and that's irresponsible when you're in a position like myself, or you have a position like I do. I think it's irresponsible to sit and be quiet and just write a check and give it to an organization and say, you do it, that kind of thing. I think as long as I have this position and I can affect change by meeting with certain people that need to hear what's going on, or allowing our players to voice what they see and feel with those particular positions in our city and in our state, I think those are things that are going to at least get people talking so that they can see. You can't fix the problem if you don't understand what's going on. And I think that's what many Blacks are in an uproar about right now, because they feel like nobody understands what's going on. They don't understand the inequality in the healthcare system or school systems and just general living in a neighborhood. Like it is generally hard for Black people in this country, and it has been. And when you feel like it's systematic, that's a lonely, helpless place. And when you feel like nobody understands that, that's even lonelier.
Coach Misha Jones, Cronkite News, Arizona PBS. Thank you for taking the time out to be on this call with us today. My question for you is, you mentioned earlier that just in 2020, we've seen so many things happen, from Kobe and David Stern to just countless other things. For you personally, how do you keep going? How do you keep adding on to the end of your rope so that you don't fall off?
Man, that's a good question. Turn my hat on backwards for that. Hold on. Gosh, I mean, I think the Bible says to whom much is given, much is expected, and that has always been something that has been impressed upon me from my mentors to, studying the Bible. I know that I have this position, whether it's encouraging players, encouraging kids who watch us, but more than anything, I don't want to get 20 or 30 years from now and look my kids in the eyes and say all I did was play and coach. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't want to do that. Coach Pop taught me that when I first got into coaching. He would often remark that it was just boring to only do basketball. And I don't want to get in my 60s and 70s and not be able to tell my children that I tried to affect more than just a pick and roll coverage. I want to be able to say to them that, not in a way that would be bragging, but I want to be able to say to them, you have an obligation to serve, son or daughter. You do. And I'm telling you this because I did it. Whether it's, whatever capacity it is that we have done over the years. And so for me, I think that's where it starts and ends. I don't want to just do basketball. And I've expressed that with every job that I've taken. And, thankfully I work for a man who understands that I'm not just going to be a basketball coach. I'm hopeful that every community that we live in, I can affect some type of change. And that's, it is a lot. Our schedules are busy, and for the most part, we're gone all the time, but that's no excuse to only do basketball. We've been given these positions, and I know that somebody else could be in this position. And so I want to try to make the most of it if I can.
I think we're on for the last question.
Hey, Monty, thanks. As everyone said, thank you for hopping on here with us. There's already been a lot of talk by some people who think maybe there's not a place for sports like this, but I think there's a lot to be said, and you've said similar things, that being able to use that platform can have its own value. Where's your head with that? There's two ends to it, I think, but where are you?
I'm sensitive to both. You know what I'm saying? Like, I get it. I do. There have been days where I'm I'm in here doing this, and I got my TV right here, and I see this stuff going on, and I'm like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? I toggle between both myself, and I don't have a great answer for that. My hope is that if we do get back into playing basketball, that it does not take the attention off and the focus off of the things that really need to change. Because we've often said that sports is a break from reality. And I do not think we need a break from reality right now. I think we need to continue to focus on reality. And I'm hopeful that sports can be a part of that reality. And so I'm like most people, I think I toggle between both sentiments. I won't say that I struggle with it, but I have sat here watching film or drawing up, working on a play or talking to one of the coaches and ask myself, like, is this really that important today based on where we are? And it's a tough one. So, the last thing, if that was the last question that I want to leave with you guys, I've thought about this, and I know you guys have as well. Our police, men and women who do their jobs with integrity, who walk out of their homes every day to protect and serve, they need to be esteemed and respected right now. That to me, in the midst of everything that's going on, I know policemen and women, and them and their spouses are in a tough spot. And the ones that are doing it right every day they need to be respected. They need to be esteemed. They need to be applauded. And I don't think we can forget that. I know you guys are on point with that, but I just thought it was, since I'm here talking, I think it's important that that is promoted. We have good men and women in law enforcement, and it's so easy to paint everybody with the negative brush of what we just saw, no matter what the situation is. And I think that's unfair to the men and women who leave their homes every day. They leave their spouses and kids to protect us and do right. And they should be respected and esteemed, and we can't forget that.